Okay. Hey, Ernest, how's it going? It's good to see you again. I'm glad to be
Hey,
back with you. How's it going?
it's going well, Ashanti. It's been a busy couple of weeks as we kind of discussed online, and this weather in the Midwest has been something else. A lot of power outages and things, but we're slowly getting
Mhm.
back to normal, hopefully. Yeah, summer's already going. I can't believe it's the 13th already of July, which is crazy, and we're
Crazy.
almost into halfway into the year. So again, time management is very important. And you definitely got to take time out for yourself too, as well as this time is just moving just at warp speed. So it's great to be back on
Yeah.
again and to share some more insights and nuggets with you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my power just now coming back on. It was crazy. I've never experienced this before while living in Chicago. But nevertheless, welcome audience. This is basically a live stream. So, if you have any questions, we'll get back to you. We are going to be posting this to our Instagram and Facebook as well as our YouTube. So if you have questions, it'll be a quick response. Thank you for joining us. This podcast, the Law of Biblical Mechanics podcast, we're going to be talking about kingdom influence and a culture of self promotion and building a legacy over popularity. So, Ernest, as always, can you please start us with a verse that will get us through the week?
Sure. Well, I have several, but the first one that we're going to start with the intro is from Proverbs 27, verse 2. Let another praise you and not your own mouth, a stranger and not your own lips. So that's a major, major mouthful right there. Self-praise and exaltation is dangerous. And we talked about previous, if you haven't had a chance to look at some of our previous podcasts, we talked about the ego. And we talked about Proverbs 16 and 18.
Mhm.
Pride goeth before destruction and a haughty spirit before a big fall. So we have to be very careful that pride, we talked about previously, provides blind spots in people's thinking because basically it's not rooted in facts. It's rooted in a inflated sense of ego, inflated sense of self. And we see that in leadership. We see that in relationships all the time that people don't want to take accountability. What ends up happening is at the end of the day, they basically want to cover over their weaknesses. And as a leader, you can't do that. And you have to rely on your resources, your staff, and things of that nature. We kind of touched on that many times before, and I cannot stress that enough that even from a biblical perspective, that we have to be careful about how we conduct ourselves and how we think of ourselves. It isn't to say that we shouldn't think of ourselves more highly. Highly. We should not think of ourselves more highly, is what I should say. Because again, it gets into conceitedness, arrogance, and it creates all kind of issues. And you're really not looking at the facts of the matter, and that sets you up for really, really bad outcomes. So I can't stress that enough. So we're
Yeah.
going to start with that as it relates to what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and with that being said, I want to know what is your thoughts on the differences between having an influence over your following as a leader and popularity? Like, what's more important to you, you know?
Well, that's another good one. As I was going through the agenda and I was doing a little research, popularity is interesting. If you're an entertainer, athlete, popularity is how many people just follow me just because of who I am. There's
Mhm.
no change. There's no uh, individual growth. It's basically I'm basically putting that individual on a pedestal. And the Bible also
Mhm.
talks about that to compare yourselves with yourselves is not wise. It's in the New Testament. You can do a Google search on that. The Apostle Paul talked about that. It's very important because if I think that someone has cut up too big of a piece of a pie, then that's going to cause an issue with me to think that I got shortchanged. And a lot of times people follow popularity because of low self-esteem in my case. Not in all cases, but I would definitely say that they actually think that that individual has something special and more important than them. And I want to stress every human being on this planet has something inside of them that no one else has. There's over 8 billion people approximately on the planet. And everyone has something, if they work that out, could bring them in front of priests, in front of kings, and would basically promote them automatically. That's our God-given talents. And so that's what I would say with popularity. But when you look at influence, on the other hand, it's the power to inspire, change, shift opinions, and motivate people to take action. That's a whole nother skill set because influence, if I'm influencing something, I'm not looking to be put on the pedestal. My job is to make the other person better. And if I can share something that will make that person get to their destiny faster, that is my responsibility as a human being to do that. So that's, I think, the big difference. And there's nothing wrong with popularity. I always tell my staff, listen, don't exalt me, put me on the pedestal. They say, oh, Ernest, how did you figure this out? And wow, I don't know how you keep track of all these projects and this, that, and the other. And I just tell them it's over experience. It's over 30 something years of experience. It's being teachable and reachable. And I'm still not where I need to be. If you think about it, it's kind of funny. I was looking in the news today. Elon Musk is now the first trillionaire on the planet ever and with SpaceX. And it was funny because a lot of people got mad. Oh, I don't think, how would one person have that kind of wealth and things of that nature? Well, at the end of the day, if he followed the rules that were in place, there's nothing to be said. Everyone has an opportunity to do well. I think that they really have to look at observation association teacher. We talked about that too. What do you think of yourself?
Mhm.
What is your image of yourself? If you have the wrong image, you're going to have the wrong results. So for me, influence is more about what can I impart to an individual or to a group that will make them better, that will make them execute, that in a year I could look and say, wow, that person used to think like XYZ. Now it's totally different. And you can see the growth in people. And really, influence to me is not to say that at some point they may exceed what I'm doing. They may get bigger than what I'm doing. And as a leader, you shouldn't be afraid of that. Sometimes the people in your staff, they may go on to bigger and better things. They may outpace you. They may do that. But if you're able to influence, it doesn't matter because that's what they were supposed to do in the first place. So when you look at those distinguishing factors, popularity, and again, I'm not saying that popularity is necessarily bad in of itself, but it's not substantive when it comes to how we're moving people forward and how we're doing that. So influence does not look to exalt ourselves. It is to try to help others. So I think that's the difference.
Gotcha. So in one of our first podcasts, you spoke of the drum major instinct discussed by Martin Luther King Jr.
Mhm.
I want to get back into that because with that instinct, what would you say are some of the dangers of the ego under that drum major instinct?
Well, and in preparation for us getting together, I had listened to a lot of Martin Luther King speeches in the past. I actually have a big, thick book on my shelf. And I think out of all the speeches, it was very profound because it's very innate in human beings to want to be out in front, to want to shine, to want to be the first in line, things of that nature. I had some notes that I had written when I was looking at that and I was doing some research. Martin Luther King felt that an over desire of this drum major attitude fuels ego, materialism, and prejudice at the time too as well. People felt like they had to be the ones in front, and if other groups or other people were able to have, for instance, equal rights or the same rights as them, that at some point the scripts would reverse. I think it's in an innate thing that people wanted to always be out in front. So there's nothing wrong with that. I think if you look at the world right now, the positive things that have been done, when you look at technology, when you look at different building structures, when you look at air travel, and even the SpaceX and things, we're very, very intelligent. You could tell we're made in the image and likeness of our creator. So there's no question about that. The problem comes in again when you have an older, overinflated view of yourself and it's about three people, I, me, my. And when it cuts out everyone else, that's when you have issues. I want to read something too, another biblical passage from James chapter 4, verses 1 through 6, and this is out of the Amplified version, because sometimes the King James version has all those these and thous, and it just takes away the meaning. But I'll just be quick about it, and it goes along with this drum major situation, and actually goes to the spiritual level. And in chapter 4, verse 1, it says, "What leads to strife, discord, and feuds? And how do conflicts, quarrels, and fightings originate among you?" So this is Apostle James asking this question. Do they not arise from your sensual desires that are ever warring in your bodily members? You are jealous and covet what others have, and your desires go unfulfilled. So you become murderers. To hate is to murder as far as your hearts are concerned. So murder is not just the act, it's saying everything starts in the heart. You burn with envy and anger and are not able to obtain the gratification, the contentment, and the happiness that you actually seek. So you fight in war. You do not have because you do not ask. And then when you do ask God for the things that you want and fail to receive, you ask because you have wrong purposes and evil, selfish motives. Your intention is when you get what you desire to spend it, and in you spend it in sensual pleasures. You are like unfaithful wives having illicit love affairs with the world and breaking your marriage vow to God. Do you not know that being the world's friend is being God's enemy? So whoever chooses to be a friend of the world takes his stand as an enemy of God. And so he goes on basically to say that this drum major issue really is unfortunately lodged in our sensual being, in the physical. So, your taste, smell, touch, sight, and everything else, the ability to want what somebody else has, or the ability to say, why did this person get XYZ and I didn't? Again, it's a lack mentality. And that's an evil demonic thing, because the whole universe is based on abundance. In other words, if Ashanti gets promoted and now she's a leader and she's excelled, I should be happy for Ashanti. And then I know I could do the same thing. But my job is not to copy what Ashanti is doing. My job is to do what Ernest is supposed to do. And whatever my God-given abilities, that's my responsibility. And actually it's an error to covet and be envious and jealous of what somebody else is doing. You see that in the workforce all the time. I've had to deal with it in my group. Everyone wants to be on the latest project. They want to lead the latest software version, whatever the situation is. And at the end of the day, you have to, as a leader, see that negativity start coming up and you have to address it. That everybody on the team is important. They may have different roles, but if I'm missing a piece or two pieces, that whole organization or that whole department is not going to function the way it's supposed to function. So um, there's nothing wrong with people being motivated to do well. Sometimes there's a fine line when it crosses the line. And that's what Martin Luther King was talking about. And in his day, he was talking about racial prejudice and how this country was, in the 60s and things of that nature. And people felt the way they did. I think it was based on fear. What am I going to do if other groups start surpassing me? Now, all of a sudden, the things that I did is going to come back on me. And that's sowing and reaping too, as well. So there's a lot of spiritual things that are behind that when it comes to this drum major mentality. And again, it motivates. As human beings, you need motivation, but you also need discipline and you need spiritual awareness. Otherwise, if it's just in the physical, it will go rogue. And that's when you see wars, pestilence, racism, all these things that really we should be masters over. They end up mastering you because you're missing the whole spiritual piece behind this. So I think that was really, really a serious statement that Martin Luther King made, and that we need to, even to this day, even more so now, with materialism and everyone wanting to be out front and things of that nature. I tell people all the time, listen, I want to do what I'm supposed to do. I want to be properly compensated for what I do, but don't give me no awards and don't put me up there and, oh, Ernest is so great and this and that. Yeah, no, 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 no. As a leader, I'm only as great or as good as the staff that's around me, the people that's around me. That goes for your family, that goes for your friends, the people that you deal with. Those are the people that help you to do what needs to be done. And when people have a wrong image of self, they want to overcompensate because something happened in their childhood or there was a trauma or something, and now they're trying to overcompensate instead of dealing with that, getting rid of that, and just being comfortable with yourself. Everyone has something to give. And I want to stress that again to the audience. Do your job. Do what it is that you're supposed to do. Don't do somebody else's job. Okay? You may have talents to do other things, but you know what you're supposed to do. You know what your purpose is supposed to be. Do that and you'll be fulfilled. That would be my suggestion.
And I guess that kind of goes into knowing how to steward your gifts and talents without seeking validation. Because I heard a key word in that verse, and it was desire. Desire leads to those temptations of wanting what others have and not recognizing which your gifts are already to steward and your talents, because you're busy comparing yourself to the next person because your desire is for their popularity. But that person, going back to what we were talking about, the difference in influence and popularity, that person earned it by expressing what their gifts and talents were and being a steward, you know. So I think that goes into how can you see that in yourself and not always feel like you have to be validated by your boss or people, or somebody got to tell you, yeah, you're doing a great job, and give you a round of applause without you feeling like if I don't have that type of audience, then I don't feel I'm doing good, you know. So can you get into how do you become a steward with your own gifts and talents without seeking validation?
Sure. And again, I want to direct the audience back, and I can't remember which podcast it was when we talked about the parable of the talents, for instance, the five, the two, and the one. And when the master went away and gave the assignments to the stewards, he was expecting a return on investment. And again, in that story, and I don't have the actual verse, but like I said, if you go back to our previous podcast, I know we discussed that in detail. But when he came back, he expected a report from each one of these stewards as to what is it that you did with the talents and abilities that you were given. It
Mhm.
was given each according to its his or her ability. Okay, so up front, the job is not to be validated. The job is to get the job done. We are here to reflect the creator's idea that moving humanity forward and us really loving one another, doing the things that we need to do, is not for me patting myself on the back because again, I didn't create myself. Okay, I didn't have any say about me being born during this time, why I was born during this time, so on and so forth. But I do recognize the gifts and the talents and the blessings that the Most High has given me personally, that to much is given, much is required. So having a positive attitude about that is very important. And again, I don't want to beat people up if they, feel like validation is their motivating factor. What I would suggest is that you pray and meditate and find out why it is that you feel like everyone has to pat you on the back. And I know with this society, everybody, again, going back to the drum major effect, everybody wants to be out front. But again, with the stewardship, you benefit just by being a steward because guess what? You get to manage, you get to increase, you get to influence. So it's almost like you can't have water without the wet. They come together. And so for me personally, what I've learned is I have to give an account at the end of this thing to my creator to say, what is it that you have done with the abilities and the talents that I've given you in this time period when you saw the need on this planet to loosen and undo the works that the enemy has done and this negative confrontation that we have in this world right now with the wars and the strife and the divisions and things of that nature. What is it that you're supposed to do to cut through that and to rise to a higher level? You have to have a positive sense of yourself. I can't do anything outside of the Most High and what He's given me. When you think of yourself more highly than you ought to think, that's a problem because now, again, I create blind spots. I'm not realistic. There's a whole lot of things I don't know as a leader. And if I go out there and something happens, guess what? My fall is going to be twice as big as anybody else's. We don't want that. and it's embarrassing.
Mhm.
The one with the one talent was fearful. Number one, you can't be fear because God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and of sound mind. Second Timothy chapter 2, verse 1 through 7, I believe it is. Go back and take a look at it. Fear is very dangerous. So fear will paralyze you. That's number one. Number two, you don't want to despise where you are. You want to take where you are, give thanks for where you are, and believe that as you take care of little, that more will be given to you. But again, as far as that's concerned, validation is something that over the years I had to learn that guess what? If you do what you're supposed to do, and as that verse, Proverbs 27:2, let others speak great of you. Don't you do it
Yeah.
out of your mouth, right? So again, leave that to others to make a decision, but don't let that influence what you're doing because that has nothing to do, and you don't know where they came from and where their mindsets are too. So I would just say to avoid that, run your race. Do what it is that you're supposed to do. Don't look to the left, don't look to the right. There's something that everybody is supposed to do on this planet. And if you want to get into leadership and everybody says, "Oh, I want to be seen, I want to," are you sure you want to do that? Because then you're going to be called on the carpet twice as hard as everybody else. Because when you sit in that chair and you have to make those huge decisions as far as how things go, you want to operate out of discernment, out of spiritual knowledge, and not out of sense knowledge. It's great. I love school. I love certifications. I love experience. But guess what? That only goes to a certain point. And Ashanti, I'm telling you, we're getting to the point on this planet where natural solutions are not going to work anymore. We've run out of natural solutions at this point, in my opinion. You're going to have to come up
What do you
higher.
mean by natural solutions?
Pardon me?
What do you mean by natural
Well,
solutions? What
natural
are
solutions meaning that how we've always done it before, or education, or just like I said before, experience. And don't get me wrong, I like those things, and I think you need to be somewhat knowledgeable in the field that you're working in. But I can tell you personally that when big things happen and big problems happen, that didn't help me. I had to pray, I had to meditate, and I had to get discernment and get myself out of the way and say, "Oh, I'm the leader. It's going to be my way or the highway." No, 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 no. You need to figure out, hey, what's going on? If you have a conflict and people are coming to you and they can't get along, and you see this drum major instinct, how do you deal with that as a leader? Again, when you're developing teams, they don't teach you that in the PMP and Masters of Public Administration. A lot of that is just the X's and O's. But how do you deal with human interaction? How you deal with human interaction will take you higher, I believe, in a lot of cases than just book knowledge and experience. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't get me wrong. I think all of it's important, but for me, when I've had to solve major problems, they didn't come out of a book. I can guarantee you that. And people to this day, they're like, "Man, how did you come up with X, Y, Z?" And I just say, "Hey, it was most. It wasn't me. I just was able to discern the situation, realize what's going on, and deal with it before it became a firestorm." So that would be the only nugget that I could throw out to deal with that. But if you feel like you need validation, you really need to think about that and why. What happened in your childhood? What happened in your experiences to feel like you always have to be patted on the back? Do your job, and guess what? Others will do it for you.
hmm what does biblical mechanics teach us about influence and stewardship?
Well, again, the whole idea of, and if you haven't got the book, Amazon Kindle, and we'll talk about that at the end of the podcast. But really, at the end of the day, is what I've mentioned earlier. One of the reasons why I wrote the book in general is to kind of capsulize a lot of these concepts that were from the biblical standpoint and things that I've learned over the years. So really, again, influence, as I mentioned, different than popularity. My job is to do impartations because I was given the director position. I was given the leadership position in the town that I live in, and I'm very humble and I'm very thankful for that. And I take that personal because anything that's within my sphere of influence is my responsibility. If something's going wrong, it is my responsibility to fix it within reason. And anything that you've been managed with or stewarded with, your job is to make sure that it grows and that it continues to move forward. I take personal responsibility. I told my staff over and over again, don't lie to me and do your job. And anything else that comes up, I will take the bullets for you when it comes to administration or anything else that has to happen. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to throw my staff under the bus for any reason whatsoever. Because as a leader, you need to be able to articulate what it is, what the vision is for your particular department, your particular section or group. And that's your responsibility. You need to own that. You can't run from it. You can't point the fingers at anybody else because three is going to be pointing right back at you again. So, one of the reasons why I wrote the book really is because there are things that just are not taught about leadership, about change management, about your soul. And these things really, above everything, is what controls human interactions and how well things move forward. You can see when society start breaking down and things start happening, it's a soul issue. Your mind, your will, your emotions, your intellect, and your imagination. Something within those items have gotten poisoned, and you need to really deal with that. We're drilling down into what really runs everything. The knowledge, the education, the experience, all those things, they come. Anybody can go to school, get knowledge and wisdom, and that'll take you to a certain point. But you really need to understand how we as basically children of the most how are we supposed to operate? And you can see it's off course because there's all the strife and division and things like that. Our job is to fix it. That's our job. That's nobody else's job to do that. We're here in this generation right now to make a mark that cannot be erased. And we're going to be caught on the carpet at the end of this thing to find out what is it that you did to alleviate the suffering and things that were going on. What did you have to say? Did you sit by and let it happen? Did you sit back in ego and just allow things to happen? And were you just concerned about yourself? Or were you concerned about the things that were given to you? What did you do with that? Did you make it better or did you make it worse? So I take it personal. So when you talk about stewardship influence, I don't need popularity at all. I don't. I've never really been that way. Everybody's a little different. I've always, maybe that's my engineering background, because engineers are always in the background, designing things and doing things. I never really wanted to be out front. I just wanted to be successful and make sure that whatever I was doing, that I was contributing and not taking away from things. That's it.
Absolutely. And I was thinking that earlier when we were speaking that, most of the background people are what's making it happen. You don't see the creators of social media all in the front seat over the many people that's utilizing the apps. You don't see all of the restaurant owners in the front seat on commercials. You will see them now on social media, but like traditionally, you didn't know where this food came from. You didn't know who created this restaurant. All you know was that the food was good. And so I see that in leadership too, like not always do the leader need to take the front seat, but acknowledge that you have a team you built under your leadership that can do the job and get it done. Either you're going to be a part of the problem or you're going to be a part of the solution. So I hear all of that when you speak about the drum major instinct and being a steward of this earth and utilizing your gifts and talents. But with that being said, I appreciate you today, Ernest, always dropping the knowledge on us and giving us the gift of your wisdom in your book. Can you let the audience know once again where they can purchase your book and all
Sure.
of the many social media platforms to look out for more information?
Sure. And Ashanti is always good. Again, I can't believe half the year is over. And I just want to, just before I get to that, I just want to reiterate to the audience, take time for yourself. There's a lot of people that are
Yeah.
no longer with us because they went too hard in the paint, as I used to say. And I tell my staff, when life starts lifing and things of that nature, take time for yourself. You have vacation time, time with your family. I
Mhm.
have two sons and they're both in school now, and it's like, what happened to the time, right? What happened? It just kind of went. And so I just want to just really take care of your mental health. Take care of you, because if you don't function well, nothing else is going to function well. And control the things you can control, and the other things just let them work themselves out. You cannot do everything. And again, that's why it goes back to having a good staff, having a good, even your relationships. We all want to be overachievers. We all want to just excel at everything, but we're still in our physical bodies and we're still being impacted by this fallen earth that has things that impact us on a daily basis. So if you don't take that time, it'll take the time for you, and you don't want that. So, just a word to the wise for the audience. But as far
Yeah.
as the book, Law of Biblical Mechanics, Principles and Processes for Management and Stewardship, I know that's a big word. You can find that on Amazon Kindle, and it's going really well. We're looking to do, hopefully, in the next month or two, more live streams, as well as me being live on panels. I think it's important to deal with other leaders and business owners and things of that nature. There is definitely a need for that. The things that we're talking about is not
Mhm.
talked about in religious establishments, in corporate America, things of that nature, business wise. These are the things that really move things forward. And I think people really appreciate it when you break things down and stop talking over people and talking over their head. So again, that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book. You can also reach out to www.rcepllc.org, my website as well. And I just want to just really say that um, it has really, really been a blessing to be able. This has been about 2 years now since the book has been out, and it's doing very well. And as far as the Instagram and things of that nature, people are hungry and thirsty for this. And I want to tell the audience that we'll have more promos on that. We'll be doing more lives coming up, so look out for that too as well. I appreciate each and every one of you. The support and the comments that I've gotten really is very, heartwarming because you never think how much of an impact you have until you actually see it. So I just want to thank you, Ashanti. You've been great. And I really look forward to continuing these collaborations with you.
Absolutely the same here, Ernest. And thank you once again for today and all that you put out for the audience, positive and impactful, inspirational, all those many things that you give to the audience as well as myself. Thank you. And I hope that you all stay tuned. We have more to come. Be sure to like, subscribe, share the content, comment, engage. We'll get back to you. And once again, have a great week ahead of you.
Take care and be blessed and take care of one another.
Take care now.
Bye bye.